Hungary may be the penultimate round of the Formula One Championship before we head to the summer break, and so you may not expect a lot of the teams to bring any major upgrades for the event. But that's not the case, as we know 2 of the top 3 teams currently on form in Formula One will be bringing major upgrade packages. And further from that, even Aston Martin have got a huge upgrade package in which they hope to claw their way back to competitiveness in terms of being at the front of the leading 4 teams in Formula One. So with that being said, there's a lot to be found out about with regards to the pecking order for this particular weekend and of course each team's upgrades. And so let's jump right in and begin to dissect the upgrades which will be arriving for the Hungarian Grand Prix. To begin with, one of the teams I have mentioned has already begun to show their hand, and that's the Aston Martin team with their AMR 24. They had a filming day last Friday in Silverstone where they've tested some, if not all, of their upgrades which they'll be bringing to Hungary. So let's go over what has been changed on the AMR 24. So to begin with, we can see that they have a brand new floor to come with the AMR 24, as well as changes on either side of the cockpit, right where the halo is positioned. These were the only 2 notable and substantial changes on the car for the Silverstone filming day last Friday. Now for a little bit more detail as to what's going on within each of these particular parts of the car which have been upgraded, let's go into that right now. So to begin with, we're going to go over the floor of the new AMR 24. Now, this is where the bulk of the upgrades that we can see have taken place, and it begins with the roof of the floor, and this is what the engineers like to talk about in terms of where the Venturi tunnel openings are, and it's the part of the floor which sits just in front of the side pods on a Formula One vehicle. And what the team have undertaken in this particular point is the structure in which the lower side impact structure is housed has had a complete revamp for the new floor for the Hungary upgrade. And what they're trying to do, as you can see on screen right now, is to accelerate and guide the airflow further outboard towards the leading floor edge, and of course to accelerate the airflow in that region towards the back of the AMR and to their diffuser. And there's another area at the front of the floor which is undergone a change, and it's what we would call the outermost Venturi channel, the region which has the Cognizant logo on. The kind of curvature which is created around that particular part of the car has been completely revamped, perhaps further to enhance the leading flow of the air in and around, in and outside of that particular area to accelerate once again the flow towards the back of the vehicle. And of course, while we can see all the changes which have happened above the surface, the underfloor has not been shown to us and most likely won't be, but I'm adamant there's going to have been changes to that particular area of the floor because of course, most importantly, over 70% of the aerodynamic load is, created through the floor and the underfloor, which is of course housing all the Venturi tunnels. And of course, the other area in which a lot of changes can be seen from the Silverstone shakedown test just done this Friday is to either side of the cockpit, and it's in and around the halo area of that particular cockpit. Now, it's something that Ferrari have introduced on their SF24, and essentially it's like a turning vane or a winglet, which is now the whole length of the halo in terms of height, and it's literally sitting just at the same length of the halo, and this will be making sure that all the airflow is being guided in and around the engine cover and the Coke bottle region to help guide the airflow towards those particular 2 regions as I've mentioned, and of course the diffuser. And this is all about making sure that all the airflow structures that have been created with all of these winglets and the Venturi tunnels and the floors are interacting in harmony with the front wing, of course, as well. And it's really important, a particular aspect of these ground effect era cars. Every single component, every piece of kit that is put on any of these Formula One cars have to work in tandem together to make sure that they're getting the most out of the floor. So the front wing, the brake ducts, because those two are an aerodynamic element of this whole thing. The openings of the Venturi tunnels themselves, the floor edges, and all the winglets in and around the cockpit, they're all got to work harmoniously to make sure they're utilizing as much of the aerodynamic downforce points that they have on their car, and of course the load points. Moving away from them, now we come to the two big teams which will be bringing upgrades, and that is of course Red Bull and Mercedes for the event. And let's start off with the team that won the last race in Formula 1, the Mercedes team at the hands of Lewis Hamilton. So we know for a fact Mercedes are bringing what they are calling a significant upgrade package, not only to this event in Hungary, but also in Spa. And through some respectable journalists over on Twitter, we've gotten a little bit more information as to what we can expect to see the team bring for this particular race event. And the overall package is rumoured to consist of 9 parts. So you know how we have the FIA documents which are released on Friday, showcasing all of the upgrades brought onto their respective cars up and down the grid. Well, that's what we're talking about here in terms of the 9 upgrades. So I think it's going to be their most substantial upgrade package that they've brought to the W15 in one go. And I think we can expect to see a whole host of changes up and down the car. I think we're going to see changes to the side pods, as I've mentioned on many a video in the previous ones in which I've talked about this particular upgrade. I think we could see changes to the brake ducts on the front and rear. There may be suspension tweaks, and of course changes and tweaks and modifications to the floor. And I think that's what's going to comprise of all of these upgrades. And of course I can't not mention that there could be changes to the Venturi tunnel openings, as that's a very, very important area of the Formula 1 cars. And Mercedes' whole objective since the Miami Grand Prix has been about making sure they can run the car as low to the ground as possible, utilizing all the available downforce that you get lower on by having a lower ride height, without incorporating bouncing or porpoising through any of the corners, which they incurred much earlier in the season. And that's what all the previous rounds of upgrades had been about. It was all about them being able to lower the W15 as low to the floor as possible, extracting as much peak downforce and load as they could without incurring porpoising. And I think now it's going to be a continuation of just adding pure downforce points and load points onto the W15 just to make sure it goes faster. Now let's turn our attentions to the Red Bull Racing outfit. They too have been rumoured to have been bringing a huge upgrade to their RB20 for a number of race weekends now, which hasn't come to fruition. And we now think this is going to be the case for this particular event in Hungary, in which we will finally see this huge upgrade package. Again, it's a case of we don't necessarily know what they're bringing to the RB20. It's a case of wait and see, but we can guesstimate what potential changes and tweaks might be happening on the RB20. We could see tweaks to the front wing elements, the cascades, the end plates. There could be kind of just geometry changes with that particular part of the car. There could be suspension tweaks. There could be floor tweaks. Potentially a new rear wing could find its way onto the car. It's just a case with the team of just waiting and seeing what their particular upgrade package is going to be. And so that's what we're going to have to do, unfortunately. There is not a lot of info out there which has any kind of solid evidence of what they'll be bringing. Now we'll go to Ferrari. Now, while they're not bringing any upgrades to this race, what they will be doing is putting back on their Barcelona specification of new floor and all the other components and upgrades which they brought to that event. And if everything goes as they hope and they don't incur the bouncing, they're going to stick with that quicker package. But of course, If stuff does not go as planned, they do of course have the Imola specification at their disposal to bolt onto the car for the remainder of the weekend. So while Ferrari won't be bringing brand new upgrades to the car, there is a hope that they can be a bit more competitive around the street circuit of the Hungaroring, with their Barcelona upgrade package now returning to the SF24. Again, this is a case of waiting and seeing how the car behaves around this track. And I have this inkling Ferrari are going to have to be doing this particular kind of situation at every race weekend that they go to until they bring a new upgrade package that completely sorts out the porpoising that this package has incurred ever since Barcelona through high-speed corners. And I think Ferrari's overall hope is that with the particular set of characteristics around the Hungaroring, they're not going to incur anywhere near the levels of bouncing that they had at, say, Barcelona. Well guys, that's the video. These are all the upgrades which have been known to be being brought by all the Formula 1 teams for this weekend's Hungarian Grand Prix. Hope you've all enjoyed the video. If you have, leave a like. If you're new and have found this video today and you've liked what you've seen, comment down below, and of course subscribe and turn on notifications for this channel. Right guys, I'll catch you all a little bit later in the week with my breakdown of all the new upgrades for each individual car. I'll see you then.